Welcome to the Shebeen. It's Sunday evening, 7 o'clock Eastern, 4 p.m. Pacific, midnight Irish time. We're going to have a good evening talking about Irish whiskey, all the new Irish whiskey releases. We're going to talk about our whiskey of the week, distillery of the week, and lots more. So you're all very, very welcome to this week's Shebeen. We have to update that video there now from the old lock-in days. We need a new one for the Shebeen. So you're all very welcome. It's great to see you. It's great to be here talking about Irish whiskey, the wonderful world of Irish whiskey that brings people, places, and pours together. And that's what we want to do every week on the Shebeen, is celebrate Irish whiskey together, because we're all scattered across the world. We've got people joining us on the west coast of the United States tonight, east coast, everywhere in between, London, Dublin, Cork. We're going to have some crack tonight talking about Irish whiskey. There's a lot going on. So hello to everybody. Dave on the west coast, a few Daves there on the west coast. Cian Boland, hi to you, Cian, Greg Anderson, and Dawn on the east coast on the car driving. That's dedication, listening to YouTube while you drive. Don't worry about us now. Keep your eye on the road. We'll still be here when you get home. Amy O'Byrne in Arizona. How are you, Amy? James, Cheryl, how's it going, everybody? You're all very welcome. Jeff Adams, how are you, buddy? Scott is joining. Let us know what you're drinking. Scott has got Redbreast 15 in his glass. Cheryl saying hi to all the whiskey bussers. Anyone who joined Cheryl on our whiskey bus earlier this year. You're all very welcome. So it's been another busy week in the world of Irish whiskey. Just when we think we'll have a quiet week, I got to Thursday and I thought, there's no new Irish whiskey releases. What are we going to talk about on Sunday? And then suddenly, here's a release. Here's a release. And then suddenly we've got 4 of them to talk about tonight, which is, I think it's maybe 5 or 6 last week. But that's amazing. Like I said last week, the fact that every week we can talk about a new Irish whiskey is testament to the interest, the demand, the momentum that is behind the Irish whiskey industry at the moment, which we want to celebrate. And so we want to be a bridge between the distilleries, the brands, and consumers. And we also want to introduce you, the consumer, to more Irish whiskey brands and distilleries and people and places that you might not have been familiar with before, in the hopes that you'll fall in love with those whiskies, those places, and maybe even the people. Who knows? You make a trip to Ireland as well on the back of it all. All right, Jason Norris, you're sipping on the crack. Good man, Jason. Caroline Brannigan drinking Kinsale. Hi to you, Caroline. And Julie is drinking wine for the moment, then Teeling small batch. All right, we'll leave you off. Lauren McMullen flying the representing the Irish whiskey industry, flying the flag. Fair play to you, Lauren. How are you? Darren is joining us from the UK, drinking Jameson Caskmates IPA. Lovely, lovely drop. Actually, a lovely drop mixed with tonic water too. Surprisingly, a big glass of ice, Jameson Caskmates IPA, and tonic water is an amazing long drink of a hot day. I wouldn't turn it down. All right, so keep me posted on what you're drinking. Sean Brannan's joining us in Northern California. Hi to you, Sean. Yeah, keep me up to date. I'd love to know what's in your glass. I was fascinated by the whiskies that make their ways around the world. So we are going to talk tonight about lots of things. Let me put up my wee notes for myself. So we're going to talk about new Irish whiskey releases. We're going to talk about whiskey festivals in 2023. We're going to mention this month's Irish whiskey auctions. We're going to talk about our Cliffs of Moher whiskey. We're going to talk about the best Irish whiskies under $35. We will be looking at my whiskey of the week and my distillery of the week as well. So we will, there's 4 new great Irish whiskey releases, which we'll start talking about in a second. But before we do that, something that is a little bit more serious and a bit more somber and a little bit more sad is that one of our whiskey community, a whiskey writer, a very well-known whiskey writer, Dominic Roscoe, sadly passed away today. And Dominic is well known to many people in the world of Irish whiskey and the world of whiskey generally, a great knowledge on world whiskies, and had published many books and had been a great friend to Ireland, a great friend to Irish whiskey. I'd never met Dominic personally. I'd exchanged messages with him over the years, but want to raise a toast in Dominic's memory tonight. It's always sad when we hear that somebody has passed on, and especially when they pass on far too young. So Dominic, rest in peace, my friend, and sláinte to your memory. Sláinte. all too often we have to hear of the sad news, don't we, of somebody passing. Folks, and I think Serge from Irish Whiskey Magazine shared a message earlier about, seizing the moment. Don't wait to reach out to somebody, and don't wait to do the thing you've wanted to do with your life, with somebody else, with whatever it is you've been waiting to do. You never know when. You never know when, do you? So we'll keep Dominic in our thoughts as we go through this evening. All right. Bronx, good evening. We tasting the Jameson pot still. Very good. I have it on my shelf behind me. Jameson single pot still, yeah, that seems to be a popular one. I'm seeing it pop up everywhere. Stacey's drinking some Killoan Stone Soup. So there is, gosh, there's a lot to talk about. So where will we start? I'm sipping on a little bit of the craic to begin with, having in honor of Dominic, and we'll get into our whiskies then. I'll start by actually mentioning my whiskey of the week, because it's the whiskey I'll move on to next after the craic. And it's right here. So this is Jameson Black Barrel Cask Strength. And I want to talk about it for a minute because there's a reason I think this is our whiskey of the week. And it's not a new whiskey. It's been out for quite a while. But we ran a poll this week, and Jameson Black Barrel came up quite strongly in the poll as one of the most favorite Irish whiskies under $35. It wasn't the favorite. We'll talk about that a little bit later on. But I'm well aware that in the United States, a 40% ABV whiskey can be looked over because the bourbon and the Irish and the American whiskey category tends to release whiskeys that are much higher proof than 40% ABV. So cask strength whiskeys, I know, are in high demand in the United States. And it may seem like there are very few cask strength Irish whiskeys. There are many more today than there ever were, and there are more and more of them being released all the time. And certainly that feedback from the United States that cask strength is demanded is funneling back. It's finding its way back to distilleries and brands. I want to talk about Jameson cask strength very briefly because it is a cask strength whiskey, and it's the Black Barrel that you know and love, but it's not cut down to the 40% that it is bottled and shipped across the world. So Jameson Black Barrel cask strength, Jameson Black Barrel to begin with is the whiskey that got me into Irish whiskey again around 2000 and I would say 2013 when I started looking at brown spirits. Jameson Black Barrel was the whiskey that introduced me to the Irish whiskey category. I found it wonderful caramel, wonderful vanilla, and a wonderful balance of sweetness and spice, which I look for in my whiskies. And Jameson Black Barrel is a blended whiskey, a blend of pot still and grain whiskies. It's average about 7 to 9 years of age. It's a non-age statement whiskey, and it's called Jameson Black Barrel. A portion of the bourbon barrels that are used, the ex-bourbon barrels that are used, are charred a second time. So rather than sending them to Ireland after they have been used for bourbon once, they are instead flamed, charred on the inside a second time, supervised occasionally on some years by Ger Buckley, the master cooper at Middleton, who goes over to Kentucky, and they're set on fire again inside. And what that does is it caramelizes the sugars that are in the bourbon inside there, not just the wood. And so you get this wonderful, wonderful caramel notes, wonderful vanilla notes coming out as the bourbon kind of caramelizes, and it makes for a lovely, well-rounded whiskey. So Jameson have a cask strength version that's technically only available in 2 places, but I'm going to tell you about where else you can get it as well. So it is a distillery bottle your own product. So you go to the Middleton Distillery in County Cork and you can bottle your own Jameson Black Barrel for, I think it's €100 a bottle, or you can go to the old Jameson Distillery in Bow Street in Dublin and you can do exactly the same. And you'll see on the label that you have the opportunity to put your name on it. This is from the Barrel Club in Middleton Distillery. If you renewed your membership, you got a bottle of Jameson Black Barrel cask strength. But this one is bottled at 60% ABV, which should be fairly keep some of our bourbon fans happy. So technically just available in those 2 locations, but there are 2 other places where you should be able to find it as well. The first is Drinks Hero. Drinks Hero is a online retailer in Ireland. Now they sell a bottle for €140. So they're giving you a 40% markup for making it available outside of the distillery, but they ship globally, whereas the distillery in Dublin and Middleton don't. They don't ship to the United States, whereas Drinks Hero does. And every now and again, they have a global free shipping offer. So keep an eye on drinkshero.com, drinkshero.com. They're actually based in Cork, and they have, some of their stuff is really expensive and really priced for the secondary market, this included. So they're putting a 40% premium on it. But if it's something you want to get hold of, it's there. The other option is Irish whiskey auctions, which we're going to talk about in a second. I see cask strength black barrels popping up on Irish whiskey auctions of occasion. We'll have a look later and see if there's one on it this month. And that's another place where you can get it. And you can either have it shipped to you in the United States, you can have it kept for you, or talk to the fine folks at Irish whiskey auctions to send it somewhere else, some friends in Ireland perhaps. In any case, it's not always on everyone's radar. So hopefully it is now. John says Black Barrel is his gateway whiskey too. All right. So there are lots of those. Lots of those. So Caroline, they don't do any flaming of the barrels in Middleton at all. That's all done on the Kentucky side and on the Spanish side. It's only done for show now. Occasionally, Ger Buckley will flame the inside of a barrel for show. And he has a great trick where he will get you to, he'll take the barrel, a big empty barrel, and he'll have you stick your nose in there and he'll say, "What do you smell?" And everyone says, "Whiskey." And he says, "Well, there's never been whiskey inside that barrel at all. What you're smelling is oak." And he does it as a great kind of a trick to show you the nose, the smell, the bouquet that we're getting often on whiskey is actually the wood we're getting, not the whiskey itself. And so Ger's, that's his party trick whenever he's asked to do a demonstration. All right, so let's talk about our whiskies that were released in the past week, because there have been a few. So the first up is another Green Spot, an interesting one here. This is a Green Spot, a single cask Green Spot. It's a 10-year-old single pot still, and all the Spot whiskies, of course, are pot still whiskies. This was released by the Single Malt Shop. Now, the Single Malt Shop is an online retailer as well. They are part of an investment fund where you can, it's part of on the alternative stock exchange, you can actually invest in whiskey through them. And I don't know all those details, so I'd be ill-informed to talk about them. But in any case, they have a storefront where they have done, they have had a number of collaborations with Middleton, like they have a Redbreast Single Malt Shop release. And they have a 10-year-old single pot still Green Spot. It is a very simple maturation, just ex-bourbon barrels, nothing else, which is unusual for a spot whiskey, which normally is a balance, isn't it, between the bourbon barrels and sherry casks. 58% ABV, so back to that caskish strength, and only 192 bottles, and quite an expensive 340 euros. So I remember when 10-year-old whiskies and 12-year-old Green Spots, I remember the Master of Malt, I think it was the Whiskey Exchange. Was the Whiskey Exchange? I think it was the Whiskey Exchange. Released two 12-year-old Green Spots going back maybe just 3 years. They were £120 each. And they sold out fairly quickly, but that shows you the price difference in the last 2 years, 2.5 years of where whiskey has gone. But if you collect Green Spot, if you want a single cask, you'll find that online. That is at the Single Malt Shop. Google them and you'll find them. Only 192 bottles out there. It's also the last of the third-party Green Spot single casks. So Mitchell & Son have the rights to the single casks from they 1 a year. So they get granted 1 a year, and occasionally they'll allow another bar or another venue or another outlet have their Green Spot single cask that year. And over the past few years, their Green Spot single cask has gone to the Palace Bar. It's gone to Revolution Bar in Waterford. And this is, to my understanding, is the last external Green Spot single cask. And I think next year it reverts back to Mitchell & Son having either an annual release or it's not happening again. I don't know which. But in any case, the word is that this is the last of the third party single casks. So Mitchell & Son, of course, are the distributors for the spot whiskies in Ireland. They have the license. They have licensed, it depends which way you look at it, but Middleton Distillery makes it, and they Mitchell & Son license the brand to them, and in return they are the distributors. Okay, next up, another collaboration. Lots of collaborations coming out of Middleton Distillery, it seems. This is a Redbreast in conjunction with Harvey Nichols, and Harvey Nichols is a luxury store outlet in the United Kingdom. There's actually one in Dublin too, and I don't know if this Redbreast is released through their Dublin store, but Harvey Nichols is a really upscale store, clothing and foods and drinks, but it's a real super high-end store. They have released an 18-year-old single pot still. Again, we keep hearing about the last of the Redbreast single casks that have been out there, but a lot of them clearly have been in production for quite a while, in the sense that you can't just suddenly release a Redbreast single cask. It takes years to get it from conception to market, and obviously Harvey Nichols has been in the pipeline for quite a while. So there's an 18-year-old single pot still. It's all sherry, Oloroso sherry cask, which means it spent its entire life maturing, the pot still component maturing in Oloroso sherry, and 18 years minimum. And it was bottled at a very hefty 60.2%. Interestingly, Harvey Nichols spirit buyers are some of the best in the game, award-winning spirit buyers who know their chops. Between the spirit buyers at Harvey Nichols and the Whiskey Exchange, I've never seen a bad collaboration come out of the Whiskey Exchange when it comes to anything from Middleton. So I'd like to try this, but 480 euros, again, it's up at that scale we were talking about last week, where we were seeing 18, 19, and 20-year-old whiskies in the 450 all the way up to 600 euro price point. So there's obviously demand for it at that price point. There's obviously market sources or market forces advising and letting the retailer know that that's what they could expect to get for it. So that's an interesting one. 18-year-old redbreast, tough to keep up with them. Tough to keep up with them. I don't have any update on another Green Spot wine geese release, but there are some in the works. There's one from Canada in the works, the Green Spot wine, the wine geese series. Okay. Next up, Mickle. So we talked about Mickle last week because Mickle picked up the best blended whiskey in Ireland and the best non-age statement blended whiskey in Ireland for their peated blended whiskey, which we were discussing in great detail last week. Mickle is a distillery in Galway on the west coast of Ireland, in Salt Hill, just outside the city, just outside Galway. A little 1 mile walk along the Salt Hill promenade from the Claddagh out to Mickle, and they have released a single pot still, a sourced single pot still. So all of Mickle's whiskies currently come from Great Northern Distillery. And this is actually a really interesting release because what I get very excited about is the lengths or the detail that brands go to put their own stamp on things or to personalize a whiskey. So start with a base spirit, start with a base whiskey. So if there are 100 brands sourcing whiskey from Great Northern Distillery, how are they all going to stand out? How are they all going to be different? And what I love about what Mickle have done here is they have dug into their own history, their location's history, and they have used history and used their own family history to inform and inspire and indeed craft this particular whiskey. So it's a non-age statement single pot still. It spent most of its life in ex-bourbon barrels before being recast into or finished in a combination of ex-Madeira casks and peated quarter casks. I'm going to pull up some of the information on it because they sent it through to me this week. I want to read it out to you because I think it's quite interesting. So it's a rich, spicy single pot still whiskey that has sweet, crisp, dark, and stone fruit notes from a Madeira wine cask finish. And then ex-peated quarter casks lend their distinct, gentle turf smoke, evoking the sweet, subtle peat of the finest Connemara whiskey, inspired by the Galway distilleries of the past and the city's historical trade links with France, Spain, and Portugal. So Galway would have been a port where lots of wine casks would have found their way in, and no doubt to the taverns of the day. Let me see. This is taking inspiration from the pot still whiskies of the past produced in Galway. We wanted to interlace pot still whiskey with a hint of smoke reminiscent of Connemara, and the wine influence, of course, suggestive of the many casks that landed in Galway port through the 17th, 18th, and 19th centuries. So it's 100% triple distilled pot still, matured in ex-bourbon, and then filled into, like I said, Madeira casks sourced from Cascnolia in Montilla in Spain. Where have we heard that before? Our Cliffs of Moher whiskies were all finished in casks made by Cascnolia in Montilla as well. And so Cascnolia, a really boutique cask maker, they're making these small quarter casks. They're making larger casks as well. And they're getting a real name for themselves for super high-end handmade casks. So the Madeira casks sourced from Cascnolia in Montilla, and then ex-peated whiskey quarter casks sourced from Alter Oak in France. And they were used to create the Mickle Madeira Island. And after an 11-month finishing period, these components were vatted together before being cut to 46%. So the breakdown of it, interestingly, let me see if I can share this with you because there's an interesting graph here. Some people love a good pie chart. See if I can put this up on the screen. Okay, so I'll make myself smaller. How do I do that? There we go. So you'll see the little graph on there, the little chart on the right. Mickle Madeira Island creations made up of 28% triple distilled pot still that was finished in 125 litre peated whiskey quarter casks, 125 litre peated whiskey quarter casks, and then 72% triple distilled pot still finished in 225 litre Madeira wine casks, and both components initially matured in ex-bourbon casks. Interesting, right? So that is from Mickle. It's called Madeira Island Creation. And we know that Great Northern make great spirit and make great whiskey. So starting from a good start there with Great Northern whiskey, and then moving on from there to personalize it their way. That's also priced at a very favorable €55. I saw it listed on Irish Malts this week. I think it was on Celtic Whiskey. I also saw it on the Mickle website as well. So 1,700 bottles. So not a small release, and also not a big release. They're not stocked in the US yet, so these are still Ireland only, and the US is of course a target market, but right now they're working on the balance of sourcing whiskey and releasing whiskey personalized this way and individualized this way, but also laying down their own spirit, and then eventually their casks will find their way to the United States. There's no doubt about it. It's on the roadmap. The engineers enjoy a good pie chart, says Mark. Yeah, €55 is now reasonable, Brian. You're right. There was a time when €18 was reasonable, or $18 was reasonable. But the dollar's so strong, at least you got a few percentage points working in your favor. You kind of grasp at straws, grasp at whiskey straws to find what you can. But I do like when a distillery or a brand goes to great lengths to bring a whiskey further along than just a bourbon barrel at 40%. There's lots you can do. There's lots you can fail at. There's lots you can succeed at. But it's great to see interesting aspects applied to whiskey. Because for me, I love the stories behind whiskey. So once I start to think about Madeira casks and wine casks that came into Galway in the 17th and the 18th and 19th century, the next thing I put on my list then is to start looking into that to find out a little bit more about it. So that's Mickle Distillery in Galway. Next up, we've got an exclusive, because it hasn't yet been announced, but we're announcing it here tonight. The first, I think, in the world to announce it. And this is another whiskey being released by Killowen. Many of you are very familiar with Killowen Distillery. They just released 2 of their own casks, their first ever distillates that were distilled and matured on site. This is a release from their Bonded International series. And their Bonded International series is where Killowen has partnered with distilleries in other countries. And we are familiar with whiskey sourcing, where Irish whiskey brands and companies and distilleries will release whiskey sourced from another Irish whiskey distillery while they wait for their own stock to mature, or in addition to their own releases. But what we don't see very often is a distillery releasing a whiskey from another country. And that's what's happened here. So Killowen have a 3-year-old whiskey that is a collaboration with Belgrove Distillery in Tasmania, which is the state, an island state off the southeast coast of Australia, the southernmost tip of Australia. They're about 150 miles south of the southeast coast of mainland Australia. You'll find Tasmania. It was a British colony for a long time, and it is now a state of Australia. And there is a distillery that has inspired. Brendan Carty at Killowen talks about how there are two magicians in the world of whiskey, or clerics, whiskey clerics as he refers to them, Fionnán O'Connor and Belgrove Distillery, Peter Bagnall in Belgrove, that they inspired his own journey into Killowen and into whiskey making. So what we have here is a whiskey made in Belgrove in Australia that was aged in ex-Tasmanian Pinot Noir wine casks, and then brought to Ireland, where it was finished in Killowen rum and raisin casks. It's got a whopping 59.42% ABV, only 222 bottles, and £85, which is about $98, $99, I think, a bottle, and 500 milliliter bottles. So it's, again, expensive in the realm of 500 ml bottles, 3-year-old whiskey, if we were to just think in a linear fashion like that. But like I mentioned last week on the Shebeen about while whiskey prices are going up, the linear comparison of years and price doesn't always pan out. And so we have to factor in, are there other value things we look for? Maybe there aren't in some cases. Maybe there's just greed. But if there's things that apply to us or that matter to us, we might say, do you know what, I actually respect what both these distilleries are doing. That's worth an extra premium of £10 to me or $50 to me or whatever it might be. Belgrove Distillery is maybe one of the greenest kind of distilleries on earth. They also make one of the whiskeys that got them very famous is a whiskey where their rye grain is dried using sheep dung. So the sheep dung smoke is used to dry the rye grains. And interestingly, or consequently, their whiskey is called Holy Shit, WHOLLY. And that got quite a bit of attention. In fact, if you Google Gordon Ramsay and Belgrove Distillery, you'll see Gordon Ramsay did a documentary series where one of his episodes was in Tasmania, and he visits Belgrove Distillery, and he actually malts the rye over the sheep dung smoke. But Holy Shit is one of their whiskeys there in Belgrove. Yeah, they've got really interesting descriptions in Belgrove. Interestingly, if you go to Belgrove's website and you look at some of their whiskey bottles, then you'll start to tie together the Killowen connection, because the look of them, the transparency, the handwritten notes, the detail that's on the bottles, very, very reminiscent of what's happening at Killowen. Let me see if I can make this full screen here, but it says on the label, a unique mixed mash bill dried in an upcycled clothes dryer and fired in hand-built stills. Belgrove is a truly unique spirit. So kind of renegade, doing their own thing down in Tasmania. And Tasmania was the Van Diemen's Land, it was known as at one point, and it was home to lots of Irish who were sent there by the British. It was a penal colony, and they were sent there for their crimes of raising an eyebrow at a British man, or stealing a loaf of bread, or feeding their family at the wrong time of day, kind of thing. And many Irish, I mean, the Ireland-Australia connection goes back to that time when the Irish were sent off on ships, often never to return to Van Diemen's Land, to Tasmania. So lots of Irish connections there in the south of Australia, in Tasmania. All right, so those are our whiskey releases, 4 whiskey releases. Let's go back and look at them. So we've got our Green Spot, 10-year-old single pot still. We've got our Redbreast, Harvey Nichols release, 18-year-old Oloroso cask. We've got our Mickle Madeira Island, and we've got our Killowen. Of all of these, the one I want to maybe try the most is the Mickle Madeira Island, because of the lengths that they've gone to talk about it, and not just to talk about the lengths they've gone to make it and what they've actually put into it. I've gone to great lengths to talk about it, but I'm looking forward to trying that one. And then Killowen as well. The days of just being able to try a €480 whiskey, I don't know, I'm not there. Like, that's, you want to be really serious, you know, to sip it, just to try it, one measure of it. All right. Okay, so I'm going to put that down here. Move on to some Black Barrel, I think. Oh yeah, a bit of peated in it as well. Yeah, you're right, Cheryl. Right, before we move on and talk about whiskey festivals, let me open that Jameson Black Barrel cask strength, because I haven't opened it yet. So take a wee drop of this. A wee drop. Isn't that right, Lauren? So 60% ABV. Sláinte. If you don't get to catch the whole of the Shebeen live, you have to drop off. There's no penalties for doing so. You can catch up on the replays anytime we finish. And what I've done for last week's, and I'll do it for every week, is when you go to the description on YouTube, you'll see a timestamp for every part of our show. So when we talk about the whiskey releases, you'll see the time that we started it. When you see the Whiskey Fest conversation, you'll see the timestamp. You can click on it and it'll take you straight to that piece. So rather than having to sit through me blathering on for an hour or two, you can just click straight through to the bit that you're most interested in, whether it's whiskey releases or whatever part of it. All of those will be listed there. So, and we'll send that out in our newsletter every week as well, so that you can click through to it. Has anybody? So we're all joking about peat and how suddenly I'm into the old peated whiskies. Has anybody else experienced a kind of a come to peat moment? A come to peat where, do you know what, the eyes are open, or the mind is open to at least sipping, sampling, trying to detect, trying to get beyond just the smoke. I'd love to hear of a few converts joining me on this journey. David says, thanks for notations. That helps a lot. Yeah, these things can go on, can't they? And so, and I feel sorry for you all having to click through and or watch and scrub through the show to try and find your bit. So yeah, we'll keep notating. William Grass tried and just can't get to it. And there's no right or wrong, is there? For years, I couldn't touch a peated whiskey. And I think I was both mentally and physically opposed to it. And once I overcame it mentally, I got there physically. I suppose that's the way with everything, isn't it? Jason says the Silky hooked him. So James Doherty, the founder of Sleeve League Distillers and the creator of the Silky whiskies, which themselves are Great Northern Distillery sourced, will always suggest that you have one of his Silky whiskies with a big cube of ice in it. And he maintains that it's a great way to get into the softness of his whiskies, the soft peat notes of his whiskies. And I would agree, it's lovely. And so if the peated whiskey is too much, maybe experiment with a drop of water, experiment with an ice cube, and you might find your way in. But if you don't like it, don't force yourself into it. There's hundreds of other whiskies there, but every now and again, maybe take a sip every now and again and see, has your palate changed? My palate's changing all the time. I know it. I know it is, because I come back to whiskies that I had one opinion on, or a very strong opinion on a style that is completely different. Like the first sip I ever took of Redbreast back in 2007, couldn't touch it. Oh, it was too much for me. It was too complex, too spicy, I'd never drank anything like it. And so Redbreast, I stuck it on a shelf I had a bottle on a shelf for 5 years until I ran out of Jameson Black Barrel. And then I was looking for something to drink, and I tried Redbreast again in 2012 and thought to myself, what have I been missing out on all these years? Like, how have I ignored this? But my palate, I suppose, had just evolved, maybe through acclimatizing to Jameson Black Barrel, and then there was just another step up. So I think there's kind of stair stepping along the way. And I know that, as I've heard it from so many whiskey drinkers, that as they get more and more interested in whiskey and they try more things, their palate starts to accept, appreciate, understand, request, demand higher strengths, more complex flavors, and suddenly the 40% ABV becomes the watery drink. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about whiskey festivals. So when I first got into Irish whiskey, not too long ago, not very many years ago at all, there was only one Irish whiskey festival, and that was Whiskey Live in Dublin. That was it. There wasn't anything else to my knowledge. Maybe there was, but I didn't know about it. But Whiskey Live Dublin was the one, and I think I'm going back now to 2016, 2017, and back in those early days, it was still really early days, and that's only 5-6 years ago. Today, I joked with somebody during the week that there are whiskey societies and festivals opening in the toilets of other whiskey societies and festivals. And it's a wonderful thing to watch, because more and more people are getting interested, getting excited, and finding their way to new and previously unknown whiskies, previously unknown distilleries, previously unknown places through these societies and these festivals. So we'll do a thing on societies in the future as well, perhaps. But for now, I want to talk about some of the Irish whiskey festivals that are taking place on the island of Ireland next year. And I'm doing so because some of you I know have already got plans to go to Ireland, and maybe these will fit into your plans. And if not, at least you know that these exist. And in future years, you can kind of keep an eye on them, keep an eye on their websites. For those of you who are some of our famous whiskey bussers, the 30 odd of you that came with us in August to Ireland, and maybe think, oh, we should bring a whiskey bus to these festivals. Most of these festivals are not geared up for 30 people arriving up in a bus. because they'll take place in bars, they'll take place in small rooms where the capacity of that particular event might be 20 or 30 people. And so most of these things we'll talk about won't be kind of whiskey bus oriented, but they are things where a couple of you are over in Ireland, 4 of you are over in Ireland, or some of you who are listening now who are in Ireland, you might think this is something I want to explore. The beauty of these new Irish whiskey festivals is that they are two things. One is they're introducing more consumers to different styles, different whiskies, different people, like I mentioned, but they're also giving a route to market to smaller brands and the larger brands who may not be able to reach their desired consumer otherwise. And so it makes for a lovely symbiotic relationship, which I think we should celebrate. So let's go through them in the order that they are being held next year. So it's between March and May, really, we're focusing on. So really want to focus on 3 festivals. The first is the Southeast Whiskey Festival, and that's a new whiskey festival coming to Wexford town. And the Southeast Whiskey Festival was only announced probably 2 months ago. I'll put the website up here on each of the whiskey festivals so you can go and check them out yourself. Whiskeyfestival.ie. Wexford is in the southeast of Ireland, famously known as the sunny southeast. And if you've ever been there, you'll know what a joke that is, because it's never seen the sun in its life. But no, it does tend to be, apparently, technically, it's a degree or two warmer than the rest of Ireland. And how we know that is because they have the best strawberries. The best strawberries come from the sunny southeast. Wexford strawberries. In the summer, if you want a good strawberry, it's a Wexford strawberry you want. And apparently good carrots too. The organizers of the Whiskey Festival in the southeast are well known to us. They are themselves in the whiskey world. So 3 well-known people in the world of Irish whiskey. John Barron, who owns the Sky in the Ground, a very well-known Irish whiskey pub in Wexford. And Daithí O'Connell, owner of W.D. O'Connell Whiskey Merchants. And Michael Cowman from Last Drop Distillers. And the 3 of them have come together to showcase Irish whiskey in the southeast. So they're all from the southeast. Michael is a proud Wexford man. Isn't Daithí Carlow, or is he Wexford? And John is down there with his pub in Wexford as well. So you're in safe hands with these lads anyway. They know what they're doing, and great ambassadors for whiskey themselves. And what I love about this is that you've got, in the middle here, you've got Daithí O'Connell, who of the 3 here is the only one who owns a whiskey company, saying, let's bring in other whiskey companies alongside his own whiskey company, but let's showcase Ireland to people in the southeast of Ireland and anyone who wants to travel to the southeast of Ireland. And this ties in with something I've mentioned a few times, which is the collegiate nature, the very helpful, friendly nature of the Irish whiskey industry, that there's nobody that feels like they've got ownership over a thing and they own a particular thing. And I like to see this. This is something that's very encouraging to see. So what to know about this particular festival? So a couple of things. One is it takes place in Wexford, so over 1 weekend. And that weekend, let's go back to those dates, the 3rd to the 5th. This is, interestingly, each of the festivals you'll see has a unique slant on things. What the Southeast Festival, Whiskey Fest, is doing is they're focused entirely on own spirits or / whiskies. In other words, if you're a distillery, you're being asked not to bring a whiskey that you've sourced, but to bring a whiskey that you've made. Whether it's of age, whether it's still a spirit, whether it is completely matured, the idea being that they want to showcase the provenance within Ireland, and they want people to taste what has come from different regions rather than 10 brands rocking in with their Great Northern Distillery spirit and all saying, here's my Great Northern whiskey. They're focusing on provenance. The festival takes place through a series of masterclasses, and the whiskey brands that they have so far brought together to participate across 4 venues, so 4 different pubs and venues in Wexford, all in Wexford town. You've got Waterford Distillery, Connacht, Powers, Ecklandville, Middleton, Royal Oak, Slane, Blackwater, Killowen, Powerscourt, Lochmask, Clonakilty, Dingle, West Cork, Pierce Lyons, and Teeling. So a huge selection there. So across 2 days, or 3 days, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, 4 venues, 1 town, Wexford. So looking forward to that. Each event will be the master distiller or blender / owner and an MC. So I'll be MCing a few events down there myself. Daithí asked if I'd jump in and run my voice over a few of those things, which I'm looking forward to. So don't know which ones I'm going to be part of, but happy to help out there any way I can as well. So that's the Southwest Whiskey Festival. Southeast, sorry, not Southwest. Southeast. Southwest will be a different one, I'd say. South by Southwest, Southeast Whiskey Festival, and you can find all details at whiskeyfestival.ie. Lauren McMullen says we're also at this one. Are you on the list? You're not. Okay. Plus Bushmills. Jeff asked if Blackwater did a Wexford strawberry gin. They did. They did indeed. Wexford strawberries on the side of the road. Yeah, that's it, Amy. I remember that as a child, like driving. You go out for little drives, and all these, as you go east from Cork through Youghal, on through past Ardmore, through Waterford into Wexford, it's just like families on the side of the road with their little table and chairs selling strawberries that have just come out of their fields, come out of the farm, the dirt still on the berries. It was fabulous. And so, yeah, if you want a really good strawberry, Wexford is your spot. And interestingly enough, in the discussion and the ongoing debate, don't know why it's even a debate, but it for some reason people want it to be a debate. This idea of this proven fact of terroir, where things grown in one place will taste different to things grown in another place. Shocker. Mark Rainier, the founder of Waterford Distillery, uses Wexford as an example and talks about the strawberries. Like, have you ever tasted a strawberry that's tasted the same as a Wexford strawberry if it came from Cork or Dublin or Galway? And of course we haven't. So the unique conditions, climatic conditions, soil conditions, topography, geography, all of those things affect the place. And so Wexford, the sunny southeast, has its own microclimate, giving us great strawberries. Okay, next up, we have the Cork Whisky Fest. Isn't Cork the home of whiskey? Sure. Cork Whisky Fest is next up, so not barely 3 weeks after, wait now, March the 3rd to the 5th, 19 days later, that March as well, March 3rd to the 5th, 2023. Okay, and then March 24th to 26th, 2023, Cork Whisky Fest, which is being put together by Laurie O'Dwyer, who is the host of Whiskey Chats podcast that he runs from Cork. And Laurie is a big whiskey fan, big poitín fan, a big lover of Irish spirits, promoter of Irish spirits. And Laurie has gone to great lengths, put in a lot of work in pulling together very well put together itinerary, website, agenda, seamless experience so far. Very impressed with the setup at Cork Whisky Fest. Go to corkwhiskeyfest.com and you'll check it out. It's running from 24th to the 26th of March. What you need to know about Cork Whisky Fest, some interesting things. It takes place in Cork on one street, McCurtain Street. And McCurtain Street is part of what is now called in Cork the Victorian Quarter. And it is getting a lot of press lately. It's getting a lot of attention, a lot of revitalization. It was once, when I was young, it was a street you wouldn't go down. It was old and decrepit, buildings falling down and dirty, and now it's fantastic. It's the home of the Shelburne Whiskey Bar, Shelburne Pub, and it's the home of the Metropole Hotel. It's the home of, there's lots of great things, great wine bars, great restaurants, all on McCurtain Street, which is just a 5-minute walk up over St. Patrick's Bridge from Patrick Street in the main thoroughfare of Cork, up over Patrick's Bridge, and then turn right at the top of the bridge, just one street up, and you're on McCurtain Street. You turn left at the top of the bridge, you'll get to the pub called Shinay, which means that's it. It's called That's It because it's beside a funeral home. Or if you turn right, you'll get to McCurtain Street, and you'll get to Shelburne, and you'll get to the Metropole Hotel where all the events are taking place. So it kicks off on the Friday night with a brand expo. So lots of brands in one room, drinks in our hands, I'm sure, and walking from booth to booth, no doubt, to meet the brand representatives there. And then slightly different to the Waterford setup, this particular whiskey festival has masterclasses, talks, and walks. How are these all different? Masterclasses, you're going to be tasting the whiskey. You're going to be learning about them from the people who make it, from the people who represent it. Talks are going to be put on by the likes of Carol Quinn, archivist at Irish Distillers, who's based in Middleton, who'll talk about the history, no doubt, perhaps of Cork, perhaps of whiskies made in Cork. And then walks. So Cork has a tremendous history. The Cork Distilleries Company, of course, was formed through the amalgamation itself of distilleries dotted around Cork in 1867. Some of those distilleries, sites and locations form a great walking tour, a historical walking tour. For example, there is the old Jameson bottling plant, the Irish Distillers bottling plant in Cork. There's the North Mall Distillery beside the Franciscan Well Brewery, and there's lots of just really interesting points of interest of old whiskey bonders, whiskey bottlers around Cork, including like the name Murphy. You'll see embossed on old buildings, Murphy. And that was the same Murphy that went on to start the Middleton Distillery, Murphy Brewery in Cork. And so there's a lot of history there. So Eric Ryan will be holding a Cork whiskey walk. And Eric Ryan is the distiller in Middleton, and he is a fountain of knowledge on all things Cork and all things whiskey history. So that's going to be really interesting. Lots of interesting brands here, a few different ones to Wexford. Middleton, Loughrea, Blackwater, Puchin Now will be there as well. An outpost of Puchin Now. Waylock Distillery, Dingle, Clonakilty, the Spot Whiskies, Method of Madness, the Liberator, Killowen, Black's Distillery, Pierce, Sleeve League, and Redbreast. And I think there's a few more there as well. I'm sure Lauren will tell us if Bushmills is there as well. Maybe West Cork as well. That will be there as well. So let me see. So that's the Cork Whiskey Fest. I think it's interesting. Like everyone's got their own unique take on things. But if you find yourself in Cork on those dates, 24th to 26th of March, I'll be going along. I'll be heading along. The reason I'm focused on these ones that I'm mentioning is they're either ones that festivals that I'm personally attending, personally involved in, or doing some hosting with, or have been to them before, and so can highly recommend them. And that's the only reason that I'll mention. I'll kind of focus on 3 here today. There will be others will pop up as well, I'm sure, over the coming weeks and months, and we can draw attention to them as needed as well. So Cork Whiskey Fest, looking forward to that. Should be a great event in Cork. Then in May, Dublin Whiskey Live. So this is the granddaddy of them all. This was the one that got it all started and has been a great support and platform for Irish whiskey brands to meet people for the first time. I've been going to Dublin Whiskey Live. I've been there, I think, 4 times now. And this year is going to be, or 2023 will be the biggest yet. They're moving from 3 sessions to 4 sessions. They don't allow you to go to 2 sessions on the same day, or you'll be carried out in a stretcher. But you can go to 1 session a day if you want. And it's held in the RDS, the Royal Dublin Showgrounds, which is in Ballsbridge in Dublin. And so a little bit outside the city, just about a mile, no, probably 2 miles from the city centre of Dublin. It's on a bus route, lots of taxis going in and out. Dublin Whiskey Live is kind of the highlight of the whiskey calendar from an exhibition standpoint. So let's talk about some of the unique things with Whiskey Live. The first is it's one single venue. So rather than hopping around the city, you're going to one place. And it has outgrown Dublin Castle, where it was held for a few years. And it's now in the RDS, which was a great venue this year. And it allowed for more venue, it allowed for more exhibitors, it allowed for more space, it allowed for more people to be, to the corridors and the alleyways to be wider, walking between booths, which was good in a post-COVID environment where not everybody's comfortable. And one single venue, expo style, and then those 4 sessions that I talked about. This will sell out. Like all of these events will sell out. So if you at all are thinking about going to Whiskey Live, I recommend you go to the website, Whiskey Live Dublin, and buy your session pass. If you don't use it, you can surely sell it on to somebody else when it gets closer to the time. But it will sell out. And it's a note to myself. I have to buy my own ticket. I haven't got mine yet, but it'll sell out. They have master classes at the same time. So when you look at the other festivals, they're doing master classes as the main focus. Maybe like in the case of Cork, they've got an expo on Friday night, and they've got the master classes on Saturday and Sunday. With the one downside for me with Whiskey Live is that the master classes take place at the same time as the expo. And that means you've got to choose between one or the other, because typically the master classes take an hour and the expo itself is only open for, so what's that, 2.5 hours, 3.5 hours? Okay, I think they've extended the sessions this year. But sometimes if you do 2 master classes in the one day, in the one session, you don't get to go on the floor at all. And the master classes are where you get to meet the master blenders and master distillers in a classroom environment. And they're kind of almost teaching you about how they made their whiskey. You've got time to ask questions. You know, it's kind of classroom style. And they're really, really good. In my first couple of years there, I attended quite a few of them. Spot whiskey deconstructions. Remember doing a red spot cask strength tasting at one of them at one point. So that's the only downside, is that the master classes are at the same time, and you have to buy your tickets for the master class separately. And you can only buy a ticket to the master class if you've bought a ticket to the session. You might not have time to get to the session if you go to the masterclass. So I wish they found a way around that, but the masterclasses at the same time as the expo is a bit of a downside for me. It features almost every Irish whiskey brand. There's no doubt about it. Like if there's an Irish whiskey brand, they're there. Almost all of them. There's a drinks by the dram or whatever they call it. I think that's what they call it. They have a Celtic whiskey shop runs the Whiskey Live Dublin, and they give you a chance to try 10, 15 milliliter pours of very rare, hard to find whiskey. So like I, this year had a sample of Method of Madness 28-year-old for maybe it was 40 or 50 euros for like 15 milliliters, but it meant I could try it, enjoy it without having to spend $2,000 on a bottle. And so that's fun and that's nice. Those things can sell out if they've got particularly good bottles. You'll meet everyone you've ever chatted with online at Whiskey Live. And those, I think a few of you were there this year. Kristen, David, you were there, and you met people. You met people you've chatted online. You met the people who make your whiskeys. You got your photos taken. You kind of geeked out with the Middleton Masters, and it's great fun. And surprisingly, everybody ends up in the same bars at the end of the night, whether it's Searson's and Bagot Street or whether it's the Palace Bar and Fleet Street in Dublin. So it's great after parties that just go on and on and on at Whiskey Live. Kristen agrees. She did masterclasses each session, and it did take a lot of time. Now, the upside of the masterclasses is that you might get access to rare whiskies that are about to be released, or you might get a sample to take away of something that's not available anywhere else. But you have to weigh it up for yourself, whatever works for you. This year at Whiskey Live in Dublin, Gold Spot was sampled for the first time to the general public. So one day before Whiskey Live, it was launched to the press, and then first day of Whiskey Live at the Mitchell and Son stand, you could line up and get your sample of Gold Spot. So November is normally a time for, what was it, November? No, when was this one? This one was March, May. I lose track. But in any case, in previous years, they used to hold it in, I think it was November. And was it November? I lose all track of months and dates. In any case, it was tied in with typically when a bunch of whiskies were released, and you got to try them, got to taste them, which was good. Yeah, the Mitchell family were pouring those whiskies directly into your glass. John says Whiskey Live is in serious consideration this year. A milestone cake day. Well, listen. After birthday parties can be had. Used to be November, said Lauren. Yes. June this past year. Who has been to Whiskey Live? Kristen, you've been there. Lauren, obviously. Lauren has worked it. Dave, you've been there. We met quite a few people from our Irish Whiskey Fans of America group this year, which was fantastic. The Jameson Black Barrel cask strength, fabulous drop of whiskey. It's not often we see 60% cask strength whiskies of this age, 7 to 10 years of age, at $99 or $100, €100, sadly, anymore. But it wonderful burnt sugar notes. Those of you wondering about Gold Spot, because it's starting to, it has staged its appearance in different states at different times. It is a one and done. To the best of what I've been told, it was a 30,000 bottle release, or 36,000 bottle release. 24,000 of those went to the United States, but they're still popping up in different parts of the US. There are other whiskey festivals that will be happening. I'm sure that either have dates to be finalized, have details to be finalized. I don't have details on them, or haven't been to them. Belfast Whiskey Week is one. There'll be one in Killarney, we think. But more details on those if and when they arrive. So those are the three that I'm looking forward to anyway this year. Next year, I mean. Southeast Whiskey Festival, Cork Whiskey Fest, and Whiskey Live in Dublin. Be great to see you there. All right, what's next? Yes, our distillery of the week. I think I teased this picture earlier on Facebook, this video on Facebook earlier. But let's talk a little bit about our distillery of the week this week. And I will tease a video for you. And if you don't get it, we'll tease another video. So see if you can guess which distillery this is. Oh, start again. All right, 1 second there now. If you guess it from that, I'll be very impressed. All right, let me find this video. There we go. Anybody spot the whiskey bus there in the yard? All right, so our distillery of the week is Ecklandville Distillery. Some of you got it. Some of you have been there. You might have seen the whiskey bus in the yard. It is our distillery of the week. We're focused on it because we've had a lot of conversations this week about Dunville's Irish whiskey. The Ecklandville Distillery is unique. It is, I want to share some facts on it because I want to draw your attention to it. Let me share where in Ireland it is. I'm going to pull up my map here. All right, so here is our map. Let us zoom in. All right, so up here we've got the Ards Peninsula to the right of Strangford Lough. So about an hour from Belfast, you can see it already here beside Kirkcudbright. This is Ecklandville right here. You've got Strangford Lough to the west, and you've got the North Sea to the east. And it is about an hour's drive from Belfast, about 2.5 hours drive from Dublin, or you could get the ferry down here at Portaferry. You could get the little ferry across here from Strangford, which might save you a little bit of time. And so this is where it's in County Down, just to the east of Strangford Lough. And all right, how do we stop sharing that? There we go. So Ecklandville has been distilling since 2013 and has actually been a bit of a secret to many because they've had their heads down, laying down their whiskey, laying down their spirits, and not talking a whole lot about their own spirits. And so for the past few years, they've instead focused on resurrected brands. 2 resurrected brands that they have particularly worked on in the world of Irish whiskey. One is the one that we've talked about quite a bit over the past week, which is Dunville's Irish whiskey. And the other is Old Cumber. And so here's a Dunville's bottle that you'll see here. For example, that's the Dunville's brand. There's a single malt, and that's an old Royal Irish Distilleries brand that has been around since 1808 to the early 1920s. And then Old Cumber is their pot still whiskey that they released to recognize and pay homage to the Old Cumber Distillery in Northern Ireland as well. These are their sourced whiskies. Now, Old Cumber contains quite a bit of their own liquid in it from the Ecklandville Distillery, but not 100% there. So they haven't yet released a 100% Ecklandville distilled spirit. It's an 18-acre site. It's a farm to glass distillery. It consists of the Ecklandville Manor House. It consists of the barley fields, the distillery, warehousing, bottling, malting. Everything is on site. In fact, it's the only distillery in Ireland that can do farm to glass whiskey, gin, and poitín. So some of the other brands that you may not have realized come from Ecklandville or are produced there or sourced from there are Feckin Irish whiskey is one of the Ecklandville owned brands. Bon Puccin, Jawbox Gin. What else have we got? I had them up here a second ago. There's so many of them. They actually have. Pull them up here. Weaver's Gin, Weaver's Dry Gin, Jawbox Gin, Old Cumber Whiskey, which we talked about. They also recently acquired the Matt Darcy Whiskey Company, so they have brought them under their wings as well. And so they've got Bon Puccin and Feckin as well. So there's quite a lot going on. It is a big operation, and it is privately owned by husband and wife, Shane Branf and his wife, and they bought it in 2007. They bought the site and they turned it into this distillery. Shane doesn't drink. Jarlath Watson oversees the distillery and the finances, and they've been responsible for kind of sourcing some great whiskies over the past few years from the likes of Cooley Distillery, Bushmills, and others, and doing a great job of recasking, finishing in their warehouses there. They picked up Whiskey of the Year, Irish Whiskey of the Year, for their Palo Cortado single malt last 2 weeks ago at the Irish Whiskey Awards. And we're focused on them because they're only getting started. And this is the earliest, this is the smallest they'll ever be. This is the least that'll ever be known about them because of the whiskies that are being crafted there, not just the whiskies that they'll release. So it is my understanding that the Dunvilles brand and the Old Cumber brand will remain their sourced whiskies, and they will have their own brand under Ecklandville for their own whiskies when they choose to release them. But it's an extraordinary place. We're treated to a great day there at Ecklandville when we were on the whiskey bus, the end of August, which included a bluegrass band and dinner inside the distillery, sitting beside the copper pot stills, and getting a fantastic tour of the warehouses, drinking from the barrels in the warehouse. And it is really, really a special place. The Manor House is, there are talks of it being refurbished and upgraded. There's nobody living in it at the moment. And this old Manor House, the idea being, and they have actually done it in the past, is you could come and stay in that house and you could go and distill your own whiskey, go through the whole fermentation process and the distilling over the course of maybe 2 or 3 days, and then actually cask your spirit. And that becomes your cask that you've then actually overseen the complete manufacture production of while you were there in Ecklandville. That's very exciting to me. So beautiful location, beautiful site. They run tours in there. You get teas, coffees. They've got a little gift shop in there. A few distillery cats for those of you who like cats. Every distillery needs a cat or two. So Ecklandville is our distillery of the week. Let us know if anybody has been there outside of the whiskey bus. Jeff Cleveland, welcome to Healthy Baby Boy yesterday and future member of the Stories and Sips. Fantastic. No sipping in the hospital, but I've got a bottle picked out when I'm home. Jeff, that is great news. We will send an invoice to you for a new membership for your Healthy Baby Boy. Congratulations. Great news. Hope you and the missus are doing well. That's great. Well, should we have to have a sip to Jeff, his wife, a healthy baby? All right. No more whiskey spending now, Jeff. All your money has to go to raising a healthy baby. All right, let's talk about our favorite Irish whiskey brands. So we ran a poll in our group in Irish Whiskey Fans of America this week, which got 510 responses by the time I put this together this afternoon. And 510 responses was an enormous amount, but it seems to have triggered an interest. And I asked very quickly, what is the favorite Irish whiskey under $35? Now, let's talk about this. For Irish and UK people tuning in and Europeans, they're looking at this going, hold on a second. You can get an Irish whiskey for under $35. You can't do that really. Very hard to get that in Ireland, except at the big supermarkets when they discount heavily. Even in the United States, some of the pricing, all of the pricing will be different across the country. So we had examples shared of Jameson Black Barrel costing $27 in California, $42 in Pennsylvania, $37 in Ohio, or $34 in Ohio. In any case, it is an absolute I mean, crapshoot, what price you're going to pay depending on what state you're in and who controls the state. Is it open liquor sales? Is it state controlled? But what we wanted people to do is just vote very simply, $35 where you are. What can you get? And it turns out you can get quite a lot. So we had about 22 entries in there. And rather than going through all 22, because a lot of them got like 2 votes or 3 votes, I wanted to talk about the top 5, because the top 5 are in no way representative of the volume sales that take place for Irish whiskey in the United States. And I think it's quite interesting. Now, the variable, of course, is that our group, our Irish Whiskey Fans of America group, would hardly be the average American consumer, the Jameson shot drinking consumer, as an example. I think those who participated in the poll maybe have a little bit more interest in Irish whiskey. First of all, they're in an Irish whiskey fan group, and it's not just let's get hammered with Jameson group. So the top 5 there. So Powers Gold Label won out. So more than 100 votes, I think 110 votes went to Powers Gold Label, which is really, really interesting. Powers Gold Label struggles in the United States. Like, it struggles. And there's a campaign at the moment for it, try and get it going, get it growing. There was a recent rebrand. We can argue all night about the beauty or lack thereof of the bottles that they designed. Neither here nor there for this poll. But our group tends to love it. And I was trying to think about, I was diving into kind of the reasons behind it. And you can tell me why you like Powers, but from the comments and from talking to somebody in the past, like the history means something to you, like the stories, the historic, the journey that the Powers brand has gone through since 1791 seems to get your interest. There's lots of great individual stories about the brand. It's also an affordable brand. Like Powers Gold Label would have a high percentage of pot still whiskey in it, so you've got a wonderful spice, got a wonderful creaminess in there, in that Gold Label, and you get it for relatively cheap. So it seems like the closest you'll get to a pot still whiskey for under $35 almost. So I think that's why Powers Gold Label is standing out. Interestingly, like let's look at the top 3 selling whiskeys in the United States, Irish whiskeys. Number 1 is Jameson by a factor of 10. So 3.5 million cases of Jameson were sold in 2020 in the United States. The next closest was Tullamore Dew with about 320,000 cases. So 10% of what Jameson sold was Tullamore Dew. And then right behind that, with about 303,000 cases, I think, in 2020, was Proper Number 12. Now, I think Proper Number 12, since that time, has gone on to overtake Tullamore Dew to be the second best-selling Irish whiskey in America. And somebody in our group raised the point this week that Brian Nation from Keeper's Heart, from O'Shaughnessy Distillery, and formerly of Middleton, mentioned at a recent tasting that Proper Number 12, Conor McGregor's brand, was the fastest growing Irish whiskey in the last 30 years. I'd go so far as to say it's the fastest growing Irish whiskey in history. It had 1 vote in our group. So it's not growing because it's being enjoyed by whiskey fans, let's be honest, but it's growing. So there's where we have to figure out, well, is this a whiskey for whiskey fans, or is it a whiskey for not whiskey fans? Let's be honest. If you're buying Proper Number 12, I would argue, and you can tell me I'm wrong, that the largest percentage of people buying Proper Number 12 are Conor McGregor fans who idolize the man and his fighting and his swagger and his personality and anything else about him. And that's fine. Like, there's a market for that, and God bless him. But that's, I think, why it doesn't feature here. Jameson, of course, being the best-selling Irish whiskey brand in the world by a massive number, it features up there. It's like number 3 for us. But again, I feel like our group goes beyond the entry level, don't they? Like, you go beyond that. But if you are drinking a $35 or less, it seems like you're not going for Jameson. Tullamore Dew there, good showing, like 3rd place or maybe 4th place there. Jameson Black Barrel was the 2nd. And again, something else to factor in with this poll is the availability varies from state to state. So some of you said, I can't get Powers Gold Label anywhere in my state. And others saying that they could. So availability and pricing will vary, of course, throughout the United States. Tullamore Dew would be, so results came out this week that William Grant, the parent company, had revealed that their Irish subsidiary, which is Tullamore Dew, had lost €900,000 in the last trading year, compared to making 2 or 3 million the year before. And a lot of that was COVID related. And so they were kind of ringing the bell and saying, look, just watch out. Like, we think that it's not all plain sailing. And Tullamore Dew will be very popular in Eastern Europe, and the European market will be a lot bigger. I think now they've put a huge push on the United States, and they had ambassadors in the States for a while. There's really no Irish brand ambassadors anymore in the United States for the most part. That program has ended. But Tullamore Dew, would be great to see Tullamore grow, and another historic brand, great distillery, new distillery, and great people. And I'm really rooting for them. And then Blackbush, Lauren will be delighted to see her favorite there. And I didn't add in Blackbush that was fished out of the Causeway Coast after being tied by a string to a rock, to a basalt column. But these Blackbush, I think, are have no seawater on them. And that's in 5th place. I think Blackbush was my vote for my favorite Irish whiskey under $35. The all of these, there's something interesting about all of these whiskeys. Every single whiskey here is connected to the Midleton Distillery somehow. Every single whiskey is connected to the Midleton Distillery. Jameson Black Barrel comes from the Midleton Distillery. Tullamore Dew has been made, a large percentage of Tullamore Dew has been made at the Midleton Distillery as they transition to their new distillery. Jameson, of course, Midleton Distillery. Blackbush Bushmills sources its grain whiskey from the Midleton Distillery, and Powers Gold Label is made, of course, entirely in the Midleton Distillery. That tells me a couple of things. Well, that ties together in a couple of ways. One is, for a whiskey to be $35 and under, it needs massive economies of scale. It needs to be able to get to market in a very cost-efficient way, which smaller brands can't do. So the reason we see the biggest distillery in Ireland featuring so heavily here is because they can make great whiskey and get it to us very cost-effectively. And they can sell their whiskey in a cost-effective way to other brands as well. So interestingly, that they're all connected, and they're also all blends, aren't they? So in order to keep costs down, you can't have a single malt, very many single malts under $35, or very many, if any, single pot stills under $35. So the reason they're able to keep their costs down is because maize is cheaper than malted barley. And so the higher the grain component, the cheaper the whiskey can be to make it. Kristen says she's surprised Paddy isn't on the list. Paddy is way, 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 way down the list, sadly. Way, way, way down the list. Jason says it'll be interesting to see if Paddy changes with the move to Sligo. Well, I don't know if Paddy will ever be made in Sligo. The Sazerac, its parent company, has acquired the Loch Gill Distillery, the owner of the Ahru whiskey brand, that itself is sourced from elsewhere, but there's a large complex up there that'll be the Irish home of Sazerac, and maybe Paddy will be made there. We're waiting for a deep dive into what the plans are from the Irish team to learn a little bit more about that. But Paddy is made in Midleton Distillery, and there's quite a long contract in place there for it to be made there. So we'll see. Interesting to see what happens there. Lots of others that didn't make it, like or that maybe had like 1 vote or 2 votes that just weren't worth putting in there. And you might say, well, I can't believe X, Y, or Z isn't listed. And again, some of those might not even be available in other states, or they may not be aware. Some people might not be aware of them. And what was great about this poll was a lot of people saw this and said, do you know what? I need to go out and buy myself some Powers Gold Label. I've not tried that yet. So people seeing everyone voting for Powers, maybe they'll go out and buy some more. And it might be that as the years go on, and as more of these whiskies become more available, or new brands get new investments, this will change. For example, if Brown-Forman, the parent company to Jack Daniels, have anything to do with it, Slane, their Irish whiskey brand, will be the next Jack Daniels. So they're banking on that. So they put 50 million into Slane Distillery, and their bet is that Slane will be the next Jack Daniels for them. It'll be the Irish Jack Daniels. So in terms of volume, which will be interesting. John says it wasn't too long ago that Napa Oak 12 would have qualified under 35. Wow. Yeah. Things change fast, don't they? All right. So that's our 35 under $35. I'm going to publish that on our group kind of as a result and talk about it and engage, maybe kind of solicit a little bit of feedback on the poll as well. Okay, what is next? All right, we're going to talk about some upcoming events. So we have got Blackwater Distillery event. So on November 30th, some of you may have been lucky. We had 30 tasting kits that Blackwater Distillery were kind enough to give our American members. They've not shipped yet. Don't be chasing us. They've not even left Ireland. I think they get bottled tomorrow, and they'll find their way over the next 9 days to you, wherever you are in the United States, for those of you who are lucky enough to get samples. But I'd encourage any of you who are available on the November 30th at 3 p.m. Eastern to join the launch. It's the middle of the day, but sure, listen, Irish whiskey has no clock. You can join at any time of the day. And there'll be a replay too. It'll be on their Facebook page, on their YouTube channel. I'll be hosting that launch with them and sampling the whiskies as well for the first time. So I encourage you to join in for that. People in the group asking, what do I know about JJ Corry's The Jackpot? It's a private bottling. Just went to a private group. Went to a private group. All right. We've also got, for those of you who had questions about when the raffle is being run for our few places, or for the Festival of Whiskey is taking place in Ohio, the raffle is being run either tomorrow or Tuesday. So the last chance to buy your ticket to support Malachy House in Cleveland, which is an end-of-life charity, and it gives you a chance to win a place at our Festival of Middleton Whiskies with Kevin O'Gorman, the master distiller from Middleton, who's flying over to Ohio in 2 weeks' time with me. And we are going to launch, 2 weeks from tomorrow, we're going to open the Silent Distillery Chapter 3 in Cleveland, just outside Cleveland. We had a walk through the venue the other day, which was great. The Clifton Club, fantastic venue. It's going to be really fun. Great location for it, both nights. It's sold out for night number 1. Maybe there's a ticket or two left for night number 2. I expect they'll sell out. But if you're interested in buying a ticket, go to festivalofwhiskies.com. But if you want to buy a raffle ticket for just $100, of which 100% goes to our charity partner, you have a 1 in less than 200 chance to win. Really good odds. I think there was 150 tickets sold when I checked on Friday. And that means that you've got a 1 in 150 chance to win a place worth $3,500 at our 2-day festival. Irish music, bands, Irish food, and fantastic Irish food setup on night number 1, plated meal on night number 2 in the country club in a private room with Kevin O'Gorman sitting at 2 tables of 10, Kevin hosting half at one table and swapping over at me to another table. It's going to be so much fun. We're going to have a lot of fun as we sip these whiskies. It's going to be the highlight of the whiskey year, and really looking forward to raising as much money as we can. So that's coming up, festivalofwhiskies.com. Go there and you'll find the link to the raffle. Mark says that's better odds than the Blackwater sample set. It is. So that's coming up. And there was something else with that. Yeah. What else was I going to say? Oh no, we were working on like ice carvings for the event. There's interesting ice carvings we're having done for the event. There's going to be lots of little extras. They're going to be so much fun. And the prizes for the raffles that are going to take place on the night there. So fun. So fun. So that's the Dirt Grain whiskey event that's taking place. What else do we want to talk about there? Okay, so let's talk about our whiskey. So our ballot, everyone who entered our ballot, congratulations. You were all assigned or allocated your first preference on our Cliffs of Moher whiskey. The Cliffs of Moher whiskey is in a truck moving between County Clare and County Cork. It's due to arrive in Cork tomorrow. You'd never think it was a 2.5-hour drive, but it is going in a circuitous route, and it arrives in Cork tomorrow, all going to plan. And we have had some just delays technologically wise to launch this, to be able to take payment. So we're working for the first time with a fulfillment partner in Cork who is legally able to sell alcohol and able to ship all around the world and handle it really effectively for us. The challenge technologically is just getting our system to talk to theirs so that we can ensure members can place orders, and we can get our discounted shipping rates that we're subsidizing, etc. So we think that by tomorrow, we should be able to send you out your links. If not tomorrow, it'll be Tuesday. So bear with us. It'll be the first half of this week. I know it's a Thanksgiving week, but you'll have 72 hours at least to be able to complete your order, which I think is plenty of time. If somebody can complete their order in 72 hours, just email me and we'll figure it out. Nobody will be stuck. And some of you will have been allocated a second bottle if you'd like to buy it of a different one from your preferences. There's no obligation. We'd love you to buy it. If you don't, we'll give it to somebody else. But you've got 72 hours to complete your order. I think about 20 or 25 people were allocated a second bottle based on how many were remaining. So it was a remarkable split between our single malt Palo Cortado, our single malt Pedro Jimenez, and our single pot still Oloroso sherry cask. An amazing split, like so amazing. Like 62 this, 64 that, 67 this, or whatever it was. It was unbelievable. Like you couldn't have helped me out more, which was fantastic. And we're just waiting on our technology to talk, and then we'll be able to send you out the links. And you'll have a unique link, and you can't share it with anybody. And if you do, we'll come chase you with a shillelagh and we'll bat you over the head with it. And we'll get those out to you this week, 72 hours to make your purchase. And if you don't make your purchase in 72 hours, or your circumstances have changed, or you no longer want your bottle, don't worry. Just don't make your order, or let me know. Message me, or just don't complete your order. After 72 hours, you'll understand we have to reallocate it. We have to give it to, we'll pull some more names out and offer other people the chance at a second bottle. And we'll keep doing that until there's no whiskies left. I can't think of a fairer system. In future, we hope to have as many whiskies for as many people as possible. It's rare that we've done a 3 whiskey release at once. We couldn't have done 3 full, like 200-liter casks, but we've done 3 50-liter casks. So the whiskey is really, really, really good. And I'm really appreciative of all your help in this. So hopefully we'll get these moved along seamlessly. You've noticed lots of brands you might buy directly from in Ireland over the past few months have started to move to their own system where they host the purchasing on their own website. It's not an easy system to get it figured out, but once you do, it should be fine. So bear with us as we do this week. I'll be available on hand, monitoring, overseeing the orders. We'll make everything right. You know, that's how we do it. We'll make everything right. All right. Stacey wants to know if there's a prize for who buys their bottle the first. There is a prize, and that prize is my undying support and love forever. And that can't be sold or bought. I'll even put it in an empty bottle for you. Meet the Maker on December 1st, folks. We are going behind the scenes with the Dead Rabbit team. This is an event you're not going to want to miss. December 1st, 7 p.m. Eastern. Jack McGarry, the founder of the Dead Rabbit, Mark McLaughlin, director of Irish Whiskey. If you want to know how one of the busiest, most high-profile Irish bars in the world builds an Irish whiskey program, then tune in, because they're going to tell you. If you want to know how they expand from 1 location today to 15 locations in the next 5 years, they're going to tell you how they're going to do it. If you want to know how they're going to build a whiskey program that showcases new and emerging Irish whiskey brands across every new location, they're going to tell you how to do it. So there's lots that they're going to talk about. The team at the Dead Rabbit is second to none. Jack McGarry is a student of leadership and management and process, as well as hospitality. And his vision for what an Irish pub should be it gives me chills. It's my vision for, like, I share his passion, and his version of Ireland that he wants to showcase is the version that I'm the proudest of. And so I feel a great kinship with what Jack is doing and Mark is supporting at the Dead Rabbit. So I really want you to tune into it. It'll be on a private member Zoom. The links are on our website. You can register, storiesandslips.com, and it's going to be amazing. It's going to be absolutely amazing. So December 1st, and any question you have, they'll answer it. These two lads don't hold back. They don't, they don't polish their words either. They'll tell you exactly how it is, and get out of the way if you don't like it, you know. And it's great because they have a fantastic vision for what they're going to try and do. No, Johnny, they're not going to be live from the Dead Rabbit. No, they'll be tuning in from their respective homes. for it. There's no point in them being there on the night itself. So they'll share with us the plans. They may share some things to put up on the screen as well. But their next location that's opening very, very soon is Austin. Austin, Texas is going to be the first Dead Rabbit outside of New York. Then they'll move on to New Orleans, and then they've got a few more staged after that, which I'm sure they'll tell you about. I'm going to be involved with the Dead Rabbit over the coming year as well, and we'll be maybe we'll be able to share some of the details of that on our event as well. And if I'm involved, it means you're involved. So hopefully there's things we can all do together when visiting the Dead Rabbit over the coming year as well. Jeff wants to know, is Mark working at the Dead Rabbit? No, all work is done remotely. All work is done remotely with visits to New York as needed. Mark wants to know, do we have a date for a group tasting with Louise? I'm hoping to get that in the next couple of days, Mark. So our deadlines shifted when the whiskey label issue shifted. We were supposed to do it next week, but obviously you're not going to have your whiskey next week. So we're going to try and find a date that works for everybody. But it could be into December, quite into December, because I'm over in Ohio from the 2nd until the 9th. So we'll see how we go. But we'll get a date for you ASAP on that. It means you might have to open your bottles beforehand. Oh, the horror. But we'll taste it all together, and we get Louise on, and she'll talk about the casks and talk about the whiskey. All right, how's Eric? How are you doing, Eric? Good to see you. The Dead Rabbit, didn't they open for Ozzy Osbourne? Didn't he bite their head off? Or was that a bet? Yeah, look, if you're not a member of our Whiskey Club, of course, we'd love to have you. We've got some interesting releases coming up, and we'd love you to be part of it. We're trying to find unusual, independent releases exclusive to our club, casks, bottles. We'll be doing some quarterly tastings, a lot of quarterly tastings in 2023 as well. And we'll have, my goal is to get 10 whiskies out to you in 2023. So fingers crossed we can do that. And those will be whiskies that aren't available anywhere else in the world. All right. And if you're not in our Irish Whiskey Fans of America group, go in there. It's free. And also, I would ask you, if you haven't already subscribed to YouTube, to our channel that you're on right now watching, would you please click the subscribe button so that you're notified whenever we schedule a live weekly video, live weekly Shebeen, or any other videos that we put up there over the coming months. You get notifications. So click on subscribe. Click on the like button as well underneath your video. You're already watching it. Costs you nothing. And it'll help with visibility of our Shebeens as well. Yes, Louise is working on a whiskey with the Dead Rabbit. They can talk about that on the night. Right, let us talk about Irish whiskey auctions. So, how many of you have never purchased from an auction website? How many of you never purchased whiskey from an auction website? Never. Never. I'd love to know who has never, ever purchased whiskey on an auction website. And if you've got anything new in your glass, let me know. Okay. Lots of nevers. Nope, 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 nope. Okay. So there are a number of Irish whiskey auction sites have popped up in the last few years. Irish Whiskey Auctions is a whiskey auction site, is one of those such whiskey auction sites. Others include the Celtic Whiskey Auctions, and Whiskey Bidders are the three main ones on the island of Ireland. Very difficult to get Irish whiskey at auction in other places. Yes, the UK, Scotland, and Great Britain, they do, in England, do host auctions that include Irish whiskey. To a small degree in the United States, but not in any meaningful way where we could pay attention, that we should be tuning in all the time. So to date, Irish Whiskey Auctions has been the place primarily, right? And we've partnered with Irish Whiskey Auctions to give you better shipping rates on your whiskies when you're a Stories and Sips Whiskey Club member. There's 25% off your shipping costs, which Anthony Sheehy, the founder, is absorbing to encourage you to buy whiskies in this way. And I can understand why it's an unusual way to buy whiskey, because oftentimes, well, there's very expensive whiskies on there, but there's also great deals to be had. So I want to walk through a little bit of Irish Whiskey Auctions, just because, and Anthony doesn't even know I'm doing this, but they've got an auction going on right now I buy from auctions of occasion. So some of the whiskies I've got have come from auctions. Like, do I have any here that have come from an auction? There's plenty on my shelf that have come from auction sites behind me, like Irish whiskey auctions. And it's a great way to find something that's either hard to find. You can often find things at lower prices than retail, believe it or not. So obscure, unusual whiskies that haven't got everybody chasing them. You can actually get deals on whiskies cheaper than you can find them on a shelf, which is pretty astonishing. So we'll walk through Irish whiskey auctions a little bit, and I just want to explain it. I want to explain it to you, and if you've got any questions on it, I'll answer it. I'm doing it just as a kind of as a consumer myself. And again, poor old Anthony and Katie don't even know I'm doing this. They probably say, "Geez, Barry, you could have told us." And we'd have come on and talked about it ourselves. But I'm not doing anything other than showcasing how it works. So let me, I'm going to pull it up on the screen and we'll walk through it together, because there's some interesting lots on there that I want to look at this week, this month. And it is their last auction of the year, yes, and the last one before Christmas. So if you're looking for a Christmas present, they'll get it to you. Window, here we go. All right, so every time they run an auction, they'll run a charity. There'll be a charity element as well. Let me make sure I can get the right screen up. I've got 500 tabs open, don't we all? There it is. Okay. All right, so when you go to Irish whiskey auctions, you'll see up here 1,655 items. This is the largest auction they've ever run. And it's broken down on the left. You'll see 1,300 Irish whiskey, 148 Scotch, and so forth. Also on the top of the screen there, you'll see different charity items that are being run. So charity items that support different nominated charities where people have donated or brands have donated a whiskey to raise money for charity. They'll list them in here. We've put in some bottles ourselves in the past from the Story. We'll do some going forward with other bottles as well. And all the money, all the proceeds go directly to the charity. So you'll notice here underneath how many days, how many hours, how many minutes there are left on each of these items. So you can sort this. You can sort it, like you can say, look, I'm only interested in Bushmills. We'll do Bushmills because Lauren is here. So I'll click on Bushmills and it'll say we found 93 items matching your search query. So there's 93 Bushmills in here. And if I sort them by their highest price to their lowest price, it'll organize them based on exactly that. So at the highest end, there's a 32-year-old port cask. And if I scroll down, I'll see in reverse order all of the various whiskies that are up here available for me to bid on. And all the way down to, we're down to 38 euros, 22 euros. And look, if I go all the way down, you'll notice Bushmill 16 here, it's at 20 euros currently. So you might get a deal here. Now, these prices will no doubt go up. Some of them will go up. Some of them will stay where they are. But you might have your eye on something that you might put in a bid for 50 euros and say, well, you know what? I won't go higher than 50. I'll bid that as my highest amount. And if I get it, I get it. If I don't, it doesn't matter. But that's the most I'd pay for it. So you get to see all of the individual whiskies that are for sale in there. So if I click on one individually, so I'll click on this 30-year-old New American Oak Bushmills, you'll see approximately the prices and the different amounts over here. It tells you the different currencies. It tells you the current price, how many bids there are. And then if you want to bid, you have to place a bid of 360 or more in there, and it'll allow you to place your bid. So you would put in there your highest bid. So if you put in, if I said, look, I want that 30-year-old and I'm not willing to spend more than 400 euros, I'd type in 400 and it would only bid the maximum amount that beats the previous bid, even if that's just 360. And it won't go up to 400 unless somebody bids against me. And then after 400, I'm out and I have to bid again. But it gives you a description of each of the whiskey auctions, whiskey items, and it gives you a guide price down here at the bottom. 850 euros to 1100 euros is the guide price. So a little details on it, and you can click through and see the different pictures of it and satisfy yourself to its condition. Some people are using it just for collecting, but you might use it for more than that. You might use it for drinking, which is shockingly why they make whiskey. There are some interesting lots that I wanted to look at because you often find not just whiskies that are less than perhaps you would expect to spend on a bottle, but also whiskies that there's just no way you'd find them anywhere else. They come from private collections, private estates, estate sales. For example, if I go into Irish whiskey and I go to Jameson, So the older brands, you'll find some of these old unicorns raising their head every now and again, like these three up here at the top. Look at these. In 1949, John Jameson, bottled by a Bonder, bottled by, let's go into this one, bottled by Avery's. That's a pub, isn't it? In Bristol, in England. 37-year-old, 1949, John Jameson. That would have been a single pot still. Bottled in the spring of 1987. How about that? And that has got a guide price of 1,600 to 1,800 euros. Now, this is, again, a higher price example. There are 20-euro bottles in there. I've picked up bottles of Powers 12-year-old for 40 euros at Irish whiskey auctions, just to give you some sense. But you got a description here of the whiskey. So that's where you'll find some really old, interesting things. Some people like to collect these. They're not going to drink them, but they want to collect them. They want to diversify some of maybe where they're putting their savings. Here's a 10-year-old Jameson from, when was this from? 1969. That's interesting as well, isn't it? Bottled by Grants of Ireland, dated 1969. And then there was also a really interesting Redbreast, I thought. Let's see if that's here. Thought I saw an interesting Redbreast, maybe it was somewhere else. Well, actually, before I do that, here's a, if you were looking to get your hands on, let's go to JJ Corry. Down the bottom. Oh, what's this? What do I see here? Oh, somebody selling the story. 21 euros. It could be yours. And a glass and a box. I don't know where the box came from. I didn't give away boxes. Anyway, somebody's after shifting on their individual bottle of the story. Normally it's the other way around. Normally they drink the small one and flip the big one. But that's in there. Steve says, don't go showing any of those bargain bottles. You got to be fast. Keith says he uses Irish Whiskey Auctions, very happy with them. Yeah, same. I am a customer and now a partner of them and really enjoy it. And know that they will stand over their service, and Katie and Anthony are fantastic. Eric says, check out taxes and shipping. Yeah, so there are obviously additional costs to what you will pay, which we'll talk about in a second, beyond just the hammer price, as there are in all auctions. Okay, let me have a look at, there was an interesting Redbreast. I'm going to pull it up here. I think it was the Gilbey's one. Yeah, Greg, you're right. Okay, so let's go to Irish Whiskey Redbreast. There's so much interest in Redbreast and Middleton. Redbreast, 148 items. Okay, let's see if we sort by, I'd imagine this is one of the higher price ones. Look at all the dream casks. If you want to get hold of a dream cask and remortgage your house, you can do so in there. Okay, there's a Gilbey's. Okay, maybe it's a different site or somewhere I was looking at. There's an old Redbreast 12-year-old from 1978 from Gilbey's. But lots of your single casks and things that you maybe are no longer made. So again, it's not for everybody, but it's an opportunity. It's an option, right? It's one other way that if there's something you're looking for, something special, something unique that you can't get where you are, Irish Whiskey Auctions can get it to you. What should you expect to pay above and beyond the hammer price? Well, let's go into Redbreast 27 as an example. If 355 euros was my final price, so that's about $367, what I'm going to pay on top of that is I'm going to pay 10%. 10% is going to be the commission that I'll pay on top of that. And then I'll also have my shipping cost added onto that, of which I will pay value-added tax of 23 euros on 23% on top of the shipping cost. Shipping cost will vary depending on where you are and how many bottles you ship. Some of you, I know, have cheekily asked for your whiskies to be stored until there are 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 bottles and then ship them all together. which drives down the average cost per bottle of shipping, which I think Irish Whiskey Auctions would be happy to do for you. And again, you can reduce your shipping costs by a quarter if you're a Stories and Sips Whiskey Club member. And I know that there are members that have saved their entire year of Whiskey Club membership just on their shipping savings with Irish Whiskey Auctions, because they buy quite regularly from there. So it can work out for you depending on the quantities that you ship. But the more you ship, the less per bottle you'll pay. And the Anthony himself will be charged about, I think he's charged about 52 euros a bottle by UPS currently to ship. 52 euros a bottle. So I'm not sure how he's or more, 60 maybe. In any case, so whatever he's charged, he's cutting out off his rates by 25% to send it to you. I just know that talking to shippers this week, 52 euros was the average cost across UPS and FedEx for one bottle to the United States, which is very, very high. So I wanted to show you Irish Whiskey Auctions because you shouldn't be afraid of it. Anthony ships to the United States. They deliver very quickly. I know many of you are happy customers of Irish Whiskey Auctions. I'm not being paid to talk about it. I'm a happy customer, and it is a value add to you as a club member to use Irish Whiskey Auctions because you get a reduced cost on your shipping. So I don't get any benefit from it except that you get your whiskies, which is a benefit at the end of the day to me. Interesting one there. All the small batch redbreasts that were released just for the United States. What is it? 11 of them? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 of them are currently have a bid of $5,000. Imagine they went for what, $100 a bottle at the time. So nice return on the investment there. Or some of them are more expensive. Some of them are 200. Michael says, how do I prove you're a Whiskey Club member? You just email Anthony when you check out and let him know. And Anthony has a list of all the names of members. And he doesn't have all your personal details. He just has lists of names, and he verifies names with me to make sure that you're a member. And it's as simple as that. He has no other details of you. So there could be 100 John Smiths in there, and he will just ask if somebody's a member, and I'll say yes. And it's as simple as that. Martin says, the whole auction thing makes you think I'm going to pay too much. That is a common fear, and I can also say that it can be a bit of a misconception. You pay what you're willing to pay. Now, if you are easily swayed and by the momentum of an auction, as many of us can be, where things in the final minutes get down to, oh God, I better bid again. Somebody's just bid against me. I better bid again. It can go up and up and up. But what I've noticed people do a lot, which is a very clever thing to do, is at the first week of the auction, they look through the whiskies that they want, and they'll go in and they'll put their maximum bid in of what they want to spend. And that's it. They'll leave it and they'll go away and they won't look at the auction site again. And if they win, they win. And if they don't, they don't. And all those prices that they put in there are their maximum bid, and they reckon they're getting a deal at that. Sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't. But you can spend more than you want to. So just factor in the shipping costs and those taxes. They're all publicly available on their website, and they'll tell you what they are quite transparently there. So it can be a good way to get hold of things that otherwise might pass you by. Eric has a bottle of Redbreast 27 on the way. He only paid $125 for it. Well, Eric, that is a score in any man or woman's book. I can tell you that. Kristen says, if you win, put in the pickup option and then email that you're a Whiskey Club member, and they'll send you a separate invoice. There you go. And yeah, beware of auction fever. Don't, if you're a gambler, beware. Don't overdo it. Don't overdo it. But yeah, look, it's just one more option for you. There are more and more bottles, of course, popping up in the United States, but some of those will never come to the United States. And so if you're somebody who likes to spend a little bit of money on whiskey, there's a way for you to do it. And it's a service that we stand over ourselves 100%. All right. Any questions on anything that's coming up? So our next whiskey release JJ Corry our links will go out this week. All right, for the Cliffs of Moher. Stay tuned. If I can get it done tomorrow, I will. If not, it'll be Tuesday. And we're waiting on a technology partner who they didn't tell us they didn't work weekends. And we expected to have it all done on Friday. And an open support ticket was left open on Friday and they never closed it. And when we went to follow up on Saturday, they said, the support team for that department doesn't work on Saturdays and Sundays. I said, well, that's fantastic. We told them we needed to launch this thing on Sunday. In any case, we'll get that done on Monday or Tuesday for you. And then the whiskies hopefully will ship this week. If the whiskies arrive as planned to Cork tomorrow, it's a 20-minute drive for me. I'm going to go visit them and inspect them and take 10 milliliters out of each of them from you and make my own mini barrel. And you'll never know. I'm going to siphon them off. Kristen, the prize is for both nights. The raffle ticket is for 2 nights. There's two prizes. One prize is first prize is for 2 nights, and the second prize is for night number 1. Eric once bought a leather saddle at an auction, and he doesn't even own a horse. Well, what you need now is an auction to buy a horse, and then you have it all figured out. It's an exciting time in Irish whiskey between auctions, trips, distillery openings, clubs, societies, festivals. I mean, we're meeting nice people. We're meeting interesting people. We're meeting people in person that we've met online. We're meeting new friends. We're enjoying new flavors, new whiskeys. We're learning history. We're hearing stories. We're having the crack. There's a lot going on. It's a great time. It's a great time. And it doesn't show any signs of slowing down. So we must ride the wave. I was having this conversation with a whiskey owner during the week, whiskey brand owner during the week. And I said, I'm finding it tough to keep up with all of the releases. And I said, maybe I'm overcommitting to a few things. And he said, you have to commit to it all, because he said, we don't know when this Irish whiskey train will run out of steam. And so we must grab it while we can. He says, take it all, jump in on top of all of it and try and figure it all out. I enjoyed his enthusiasm. And I think as long as we don't burn out from it and we enjoy it and we drink responsibly, I suppose, it's all good. It's all good. Caroline asks, if you sell a whiskey, what's the fee? Well, first you got to get it to them, and then it's 5%, and 5% hammer price is the fee. You also pay if you want to set a reserve price. I think it's €1 additional or something if you set a reserve price. And you also have to factor in that it might not sell, in which point you have to figure out how to get the bottle back. And so the Irish Whiskey Auctions would be delighted to help you on that. And my understanding is that there will be some movement on them helping more Americans do more and making it easier for you to get your bottles and to give your bottles very soon. And I'll leave that up to Anthony to announce when he's ready to do so. John says, are we coming up on the 1-year anniversary of the club? Assume it's auto-renewal. John, the joke is on you, my friend. It's been auto-renewing every month. And we are at, yes, we secretly kind of just quietly passed the 1 anniversary of the club. And we will acknowledge that. We're back. We have a storm passing through. Storm passing through. We've got high winds, strong winds, and yeah, hopefully you can hear me there again. He's back. Yeah. Elon he's been taking all his time focused on Twitter. He's been spending no time making sure my Starlink satellite stays up. So we have a choice. We can either have Twitter or my satellite. I vote for my satellite. I like that everyone's telling me I'm back. I was never gone. I was always in the same seat. What was I going to say to you? What were we talking about? I can't even remember. Where did I lose my train of thought when the satellites went mad? Okay, Kristen's got some questions that you can all help her with on 4 pot still whiskies that she would want to see in a tasting. My first question always, Kristen, is what's available in your state, like in New York, like what do you have to begin with, and where possible, I mean, can you do different distilleries? If it's just single pot still, can you go beyond just Middleton pot stills? Can you show a different distillery? Obviously, within Middleton, you can do Spots, Redbreast, Powers, John's Lane. There's no shortage within Middleton, but if you could find, it's hard, isn't it? A Dingle pot still, or you could find a Drumshambo pot still, maybe, to just show the diversity within pot still and even within the mash bills. That could be helpful as well. But maybe you all can help Cheryl or can help Kristen on that one. No, Jeff, you know me. I have no bio breaks. I'm a camel. I can sit here for 4 hours and there's no need for a bio break. They call me Barry Camel Chandler. Glendalough or Teeling. There's a good recommendation from Cian. And if you're in New York at the moment, stay safe. I know lots of snow, lots of bad weather there as well. So, and the Midwest as well, Michigan, Detroit, I know is getting hit. Cleveland's getting hit as well at the moment. So we need a snow plan for our whiskey event in Cleveland in 2 weeks. Okay. I think that is everything for our Shebeen. So, we've caught up on the whiskey releases. We've talked about whiskey festivals. We have talked about Irish whiskey auctions and our upcoming events. Our Cliffs bottles, the Cliffs and Moher bottles, they will be our last whiskey of the year. I'm going to run another poll this week in our Irish Whiskey Fans in America group around proof points and ABVs. I've got some questions about those I'd like your thoughts on as well, and we'll discuss that in our next Shebeen next week as well. Keith wants to know if I've tasted any Tipperary whiskey. I have. Yeah, I've tasted the Watershed. I've tasted, what's the name? The Knockmeal Down, Tipperary, but it's been a while. And I haven't tasted their own grain, their own estate, their own farm distilled whiskey. So they grew their grain, they sent it to be distilled, and then they matured it, and then they released it. I haven't tasted that. Kristen says that Buffalo has 6 feet of snow and they have 0. Wow, 6 feet. It's unreal. You'd never get 6 feet of snow in Ireland, I can tell you. Jason wants to know if I've ever had Crowley whiskey. No, I haven't had it, but I met the 3 owners of the distillery at the Irish Whiskey Awards, great lads, and they said, you got to come up to Donegal to visit us. And I said, yeah, like definitely, I'll definitely try and get up there. To get to the top of Ireland, Donegal, I mean, it's a trek. Like it's a day to get there. I mean, I can get to the west coast of America as quickly as I can get to Crowley Distillery in Donegal. But it's an old doll factory, and they've converted into a distillery, and they're doing a storming trade in tourism and visitors there. And they said people just knock on the doors day and night to get in and taste the whiskey. And they're sourcing whiskey right now, and they just picked up an award for one of their whiskies at the Irish Whiskey Awards, which was Quercus Robar, I think. So they've got whiskies finished in different oaks, which is a really unique release. I think Quercus Robar, Quercus Alba, Quercus something else maybe, and I haven't tasted them personally yet. It's on my list. I have to get a few samples. I'm trying to be good about all the whiskeys. Like, how many whiskeys can I possibly have open at one time? And then it's not always easy to get samples of them. So they're on my list though. But interestingly, they said, come on up to Donegal anyway. And I said, all right, I'll get up there, but like, don't be holding your breath. It'll be a while before I can get up there. And they said, are you in Dublin? I said, no, I'm in Cork. And he said, are you anywhere near the airport in Cork? And I said, yeah, I wouldn't be far away. He said, if we send a plane down, would you come up to the distillery? I said, if you send a plane down, I said, how good is business that you can send a plane down for me? And he said, oh no, we know a fellow with a 2-seater Cessna. Would you, from the 1960s, would you jump into that and come up to Donegal? And I said, do you know what? Now that would make for a great video. I said, we'll talk. So we exchanged business cards, and maybe there'll be a Cessna, a lock-in, or a Shebeen from 8,000 feet above Ireland as I go from Cork to Donegal, because the distillery is located right beside Donegal Airport. So they're right beside the landing strip of Donegal Airport. So I'm beside Cork Airport. They're beside Donegal Airport. So we'll see how we go. Yeah, I mean, we say private plane now, but I'd say there's better made Mini Coopers, I'd say, driving around the roads, you know. It's not the private jet we think of in the rap videos, like. Yeah, we'll see if that happens. Nothing will be happening this side of the year anyway. We're all full up until January, but we'll talk soon about possibly getting together again on the East Coast. And before you start shaking sticks at me saying, "Oh, why can't you come to the West Coast?" Picture the notion of a compromise where if I fly all the way from Ireland and I land on the East Coast of the US, and then you fly from somewhere else on the West Coast and you land on the East Coast, well, we've all made some kind of sacrifice in the greater interests of Irish whiskey. And I feel like we can all meet on the East Coast. This is my compromise. And in a good compromise and a good negotiation, everyone loses something and everyone wins something. So we all lose out on a bit of travel, but we all win on a bit of whiskey. Do you know what I'm saying? So February in the East Coast, which maybe isn't the warmest time of the year to be on the East Coast, but we'll talk about February on the East Coast pretty soon. John fully endorses this plan. No wonder you do. All righty. Next week, we will focus on, we'll have another distillery of the week that we'll talk about so that you're introduced to more distilleries. Every week I'll do a new distillery. Every week I'll do a new whiskey, just so you can think about them, learn about them, taste them eventually. We will do a poll again this week in the club. We will have, or in a group, we will talk more about Meet the Maker events coming up. There's something else I have coming up in the club. We've got some nice conversations going about quarterly events for 2023. We were hoping to have more of them in 2022, but just logistics, we couldn't get more over the table in 2022. But I think we did more than 4 in 2022, but we'll do at least 4 in 2023. And I'm having some conversations with brands that they really want to get in front of you and they want you to try their whiskeys. So again, logistics are the biggest thing. I never realized just how much is involved in it. And I'm not going to complain. Like these are things we have to figure out, and it's all for the greater good, but it just takes a little bit longer. It's not like if I ran a club in Ireland, I could get whiskeys to anywhere in Ireland in 2 days. If I had an idea, you know what, I'm going to do a Redbreast single cask tasting. I'll just go to my shelf, I'll pour those into small bottles and I'll send them around Ireland and we can do a tasting, and it's easy. It's just not that easy in the United States. It's just, as you well know. So everything is a little bit harder, and we want to do things legally, and we want to do things above board, and we want to fit in with the resources of our brand partners that we're working with as well. So lots of interesting things to come, and you'll tell me if they're not interesting and we'll change. What's Ireland like in February? Asks Mark. Horizontal rain. It's what we call lazy rain. It won't go around you. It'll go straight through you. John says legally is a grey area. Actually, legally is a grey area in every walk of life. Depends on your lawyer. No, we want to Cheryl, there is no such thing as a club bottling of the Teeling ginger whiskey. They don't. It's a one-off. It's a one-off thing they did for. Yeah, it's a one-off collaboration that they did, and it's not something that they offer. So, to burst your bubble, I'm afraid we have to say no. But Teeling do want to do a quarterly tasting with us, so we're working on a quarterly tasting with Teeling, where they would ship product to you, and we're working on a little gift that would also come with that kit. That could be a bit of fun for us to do it. To play some, there's a little game we can play with this kit. So we're working on that for 2023, and maybe we're trying to work on some things with Pierce Lyons and their whiskeys in the United States. So those are a couple. Boan Distillery we're still working on. What else? Oh, there's so many that are all. Let's see who can get over the line first, logistics wise. But everyone is everyone's got different struggles and different challenges in order to get this done. But it's not for lack of interest from them anyway. Cheryl's asking about that ginger one because we got it on the Whiskey Bus tour, and it was one of our samples, one of our 9 cask strength samples before 11 a.m., wasn't it? All right, so that's it for the Shebeen. Thanks everyone for joining. We've had a good session again talking about Irish whiskey, and all I ask of you is that you like this event by clicking on the like button under the YouTube video. You click subscribe so that you can get notifications of our Shebeens when they go live. And I'll see you all in the Irish Whiskey Fans of America Facebook group this week. I'll be sending you out an email, hopefully in the next 48 hours, with links for those of you who are successful in our ballot to purchase the Cliffs of Moher whiskey. We'll arrange a date for the whiskey tasting. I'll see some of you on the launch of Dirt Grain Irish Whiskey. And we'll see some of you on our December 1st event with the Dead Rabbit as well. So keep an eye on your emails, keep an eye on your social media, and tell everybody about the crack that can be had around Irish whiskey with all these nice people that gather here of a Sunday night and talk about wonderful, wonderful whiskey. So thank you, everybody. Thanks for the thumbs up, Eric. Appreciate it. And all of you as well. I really appreciate all of this. And I'll see you all next week again on next week's Shebeen, and I'll send out a replay by email as well. So, everybody. Cheers. Great to see you. Thanks for tuning in.